to a special year-end recap of With Love, The Chambers. Throughout this year, hosts Rufus and Jamila Chambers have invited us into their world to talk about life, love, marriage, and so much more. Today, we're excited to bring you a look back at some of the most memorable moments from their journey. You'll hear the highlights that made us laugh, the insights that made us think, and the stories that touched our hearts. So sit back, relax, and join us as we celebrate the incredible conversations we've shared on With Love, The Chambers.
Welcome to With Love, The Chambers.
Where life, laughter, and lasting lessons meet.
We're The Chambers, a husband and wife navigating faith, family, and everything in between.
Here we share real stories, heartfelt conversations, and a whole lot of love. Because life isn't perfect, but God's grace sure is.
So pull up a seat, grab a cup of coffee, or go ahead and sip that tea, and join us for honest talks, laughs, and the wisdom we're learning along the way. This is With Love, The Chambers.
This episode of With Love, The Chambers was brought to you by the Vision Engineering Collective, where purpose meets strategy and vision comes to life. If you've been enjoying the stories, the laughs, and those deep life lessons, we invite you to support the show and help us keep the love flowing. Head over to www.coff.ee/withlovethechambers. Think of it like buying us a cup of coffee or two. As always, thank you for hanging with us. Now back to the show. And now, let's dive into one of our standout episodes of the year, Episode 10, Love and Marriage in a Social Media World. In this conversation, Rufus and Jamila opened up about the evolving nature of marriage in today's world. They tackled the impact of social media on relationships, shared their own experiences, and explored how couples can navigate modern challenges while staying true to their values. It's a conversation full of wisdom and warmth, and it really resonated with so many of our listeners, so let's check it out.
As you know, I am now an official TikTok connoisseur.
You are.
So I am often in these TikTok streets. I'm also an avid YouTuber, always looking for sound bites of information. And when I scroll and look for content relating to love and relationships and marriage, some of the information that I see out here is concerning because I feel like a lot of people have lost faith in the institution of marriage, in the institution of family, and even in the institution of meaningful, committed relationships. You know, now people talk about open marriages and open relationships and, you know, polygamy and all these terms that are like, wow. I mean, and people they're not only doing it, but they're making very strong arguments for them. In our news cycle recently, Paul Pierce, the Hall of Famer, the retired NBA player, he made a statement that I personally found ignorant in saying that marriage is for old people and marriage is for poor people. And, you know, when I hear things like that, it's concerning because I think about the future of our community, the future of our family legacy. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on where we're at in today as it pertains to marriage, as it pertains to relationship. How did we get here and how can we help some people self-correct?
Where we're at today, we are having this conversation because in your TikTok streets, you came across the red balloon poppers.
The red balloon poppers.
You came across the red balloon poppers several months ago. Mm-hmm. And for those of you that have not experienced that on TikTok, it is a show where on site, there will be one person that has several suitors in front of them. Mm-hmm. And those suitors on site will determine, and it could be male or female, will determine whether or not they want to date the person simply based on them walking into a room and really not saying much about themselves. Yeah. And so one of the things that's very difficult with watching that exchange is you're watching people that are of age to have meaningful relationships that might blossom into marriage. Mm-hmm. You are watching people that are career individuals. Many of them have multiple degrees and are educated. But when it comes to relationship, they're saying on site, based on me looking at you before you've said a word, I am going to make a determination as to whether or not you're someone that I would like to get to know better. Yeah. And so when it is the challenge, and when we say, well, where we are today, there is something to be said. There is that show and there's that manifestation of it, but there's something to be said about people not taking the time to invest in getting, just as friends, just outside of relationship, but just taking the time to invest in getting to know someone, to get to hear their story, to learn more about just their background and what brought them to a place or to a space. And so when we start talking about just having a meaningful relationship to begin with, we are doing a really good job at being friends.
Yeah.
We live in a world that's heavily curated.
Yes.
We consume content when we want to consume it. Those that are watching us now or listening to us now are doing it on demand. They are not tuning in at a particular date, at a particular time. Everything that is in our social media feeds or what we consume on television. When you and I were young, there was a lineup on television on major networks, and you watched what was in the lineup. You didn't get to curate a playlist.
Absolutely.
Of it was terrestrial radio. There was no playlist of curated music that all I did was like listen to this really, really curated and create this echo chamber around myself. Tell me your thoughts about how that's impacting relationships, though, because if all I do is consume on demand in a very curated way, everything around me, how can I then prepare myself to be introduced to a person that may not look the way I think they're going to look, or be from the culture that I think they're going to be from, or the neighborhood that I thought, because you and I could not have curated one another. We're from different parts of the state. We did not, you went to private school. I was a public school kid. Like, we could not have curated one another. Yet in this day and age, most everything is
on demand,
a curated and a construct. So how do those cultural parameters prevent us from developing these really, really meaningful relationships?
Yeah, it's again, it causes us to pause and really consider these things, and I think before any person gets into a relationship and approaches a relationship, they need to know who they are, as far as I'm concerned, as an individual. And again, if you're allowing your curated playlist, your curated content define who you are, you're going to make the decisions that have been made, unfortunately. And I think that is the miscalculation I think that some people make is, again, if you're going to listen to a lot of banter on social media that becomes your algorithm, that is anti-relationship, anti-love, anti-sacrifice, anti the opposite sex, that will become the meditation of your heart. So when you go into the dating field and you have all of this content that's running through your mind that is counteractive to developing a meaningful, loving relationship, you got to work through that. And I think some people are unable to because they don't know what has happened. That's the subtlety of some enemies, right? It sneaks up on you. And before you know you've been compromised, you have been.
Yes.
And now you're coming into that proverbial dating table with all this junk in your head. So I think people need to, again, protect their minds, protect their hearts, protect their ears, and be on the lookout for things, ideologies, thoughts, voices that are trying to suck love out of your whole context.
And that was a glimpse into how Rufus and Jamila see love and marriage in the age of social media. It's amazing how relevant and relatable their insights are for so many of us. Now let's move on to episode 16, titled Built in Private. In this episode, Rufus and Jamila took us into a different kind of conversation about how public scrutiny and outside opinions can shape or strain a relationship. They shared stories, laughed about celebrity couples in the spotlight, and gave some heartfelt advice on keeping your own relationship strong no matter who's watching. Let's jump right into it.
Sometimes things are on Front Street.
Okay.
And your relationship, yes.
You have to explain. Some of our listeners may be a little culturally naive to the term Front Street. So maybe you need to.
And especially when we're
translate.
from the 1900s.
That's
on top
right.
of that.
What is Front Street?
Using that up front and center. Yes, there we go.
Up front and center.
Sometimes our relationship issues, who we're dating, who we're seeing, the decisions that we make in our relationship sometimes become front and center. And you see Nelly and Ashanti spinning the block. You see Megan Good hooked up with Jonathan Majors after some controversy.
Yeah.
And
I guess she didn't hear the Cat Williams podcast, but that's another conversation. I guess she didn't watch.
Now, you know what?
Didn't watch that episode of Cat Williams on Club Shay Shay.
You better leave Shay Shay and Cat alone. Before Cat got something to say about us, because one thing that brother Cat did, he broke it all the way down.
He did.
But sometimes things are front and center in your relationships, and sometimes you make decisions in your relationships that are popular. Sometimes you make decisions that are unpopular, and everybody has an opinion. Whether your relationship is public, like some of the people that we mentioned, and we can get into our political figures that have public relationships and all these sorts of things within a ministry context, like all of those things become very front and center.
Yeah.
Or whether it's just your family that got something to say.
Oh, families have opinions. Oh, okay. We haven't had any experience.
We haven't had none of those. We haven't had none of those things.
We've only heard such things, but not
we've only heard about
them.
such things. We've never experienced such things. But even if there are family members that have really, really strong, opinions and things to say, we're going to talk about navigating through that.
Okay.
And navigating through those moments where your private relationship issues, struggles, challenges kind of get put on Front Street. Or front and center. And so starting off that conversation and kind of beginning to have that conversation, what kind of foundational, knowing that those things are going to happen, and I think that maybe is the first tool or tip, knowing that even within your private relationship, your marriage, your long-term relationship, knowing that people are just going to have something to say. And they're just going to have opinions. What are some foundational things that couples should consider, have in place, be able to have as foundational bricks, so to speak, to withstand those storms? Where should we start privately before we get on Front Street?
That's a tough one. As you were doing the opening context, I was thinking about, and I think we've referenced this statement in an earlier podcast, and Ari Vernon, the pastor of the Word Church in Cleveland, Ohio, with multiple campuses, he made a statement, I hope he did, but a statement about you can't have a mega church with a storefront marriage. And that was Ari Vernon. And when he said it, I thought about, wow, the relationship has to do the private work to be able to sustain the public spotlight. And I think it starts with a foundation. We are followers of Christ, and the parable of the person that built on sand versus rock is appropriate to this conversation. How you build your relationship, what foundation you build it on is going to indicate how you can withstand a storm. And we understand the storm could be sickness, it could be financial ruin, it could be a child going through, hardship, or it can be success. You know, that's the other thing is, you know, when you talk about a storm, it could just be unexpected success or overwhelming success where your relationship or your marriage has to withstand media. It has to withstand money. It has to withstand journalism and et cetera. So I think the foundation, it needs to be trust. It needs to be communication. It needs to be agreement. It needs to be alignment, because as you have those things in the foundation, when you present your relationship publicly, you and your significant other already have a working knowledge, a working understanding, a mutual agreement on what it is, versus going out into the public and trying to figure it out. People have perfected branding. People have perfected public persona,
Better talk about
but
it.
they have not perfected the private work. You know, where we have celebrities like, you know, Jonathan Majors and Megan Good, you know, Jonathan Majors' separation with this other woman, it played itself out in the public eye. And then he's on court because whatever happened with this ex-woman. And Megan Good and Devon Franklin, same thing, their relationship, their courtship, their marriage, they wrote a book, and now their divorce is all playing us out in the public eye. And now they've both moved on to new relationships, but they've done so all in the public eye.
Which is very difficult.
And maintaining a public image and persona is a lot of work. My heartfelt prayer and hope is that the private work has been done in addition to this manicured public persona. And I think us as mere mortals or mere regular people, I think sometimes we stargaze at these personas and think the relationships that we need to manage and maintain is more about the brand versus the private work. Can you talk to how do we coach and lead and mentor people in relationships when they're watching these massaged brands?
Not only watching these massage brands, but you and I will get that feedback. People will look at our life in particular, in our marriage, and say, oh, that's couples goals, or look at the chambers and all of that stuff. There's so many people that will look at somebody else's marriage or somebody else's relationship and say, that's what I aspire to. And there's some good parts to that, right? So there's some good things when you get to connect with people and have access to them and watch them over a period of years. I remember when you and I moved back to Los Angeles from the Bay Area in 2013, my dad said, how you and Rufus doing? That we had been married a long time, and it was one of those for real. Yeah, Sensei. We call my dad Sensei. I'm gonna call my dad Sensei. Yes. So Sensei said, how are you all doing? No, really, how are you and Rufus doing? And my response to him at that time is like, you know, marriage is tough, marriage is hard, but me and Rufus are doing great. At that time, my sister had been living with us for a number of years, and we had literally been sharing a wall in the home. Our bedroom was on this side of the wall, and my sister's bedroom was on the other side of the wall for about 2 or 3 years before we moved back to LA. And I told my dad, I said, you know, you can't front for 2 or 3 years. I said, Jerry's been living on the other side of the wall for the last 3 years. And if it was something going on, you would have got a full report, because what my sister's called rewind. One thing about my sister, she gonna rewind the story, okay? She gonna run it back. And so I say all that to say is that there's nothing wrong with looking at couples that you have a level of access to and being able to glean from them by having access to them in their private moments. You and I benefit from that, being around couples, and we have access to them and are able to learn from them. They're able to share their lives with us privately. They're able to give us access to their failures, to their successes. That's one thing. I think where the danger is for the people we don't have that level of access to, and we're looking at their curated, constructed personas that are put out there in the public.
Yeah.
And sometimes what's put out there in the public doesn't match what's happening in privately. What we say privately is, can your life preach? Don't tell me about the things that you're doing. Can I follow you home?
Yeah.
Can I live on the other side of the wall for 3 years? Can I, be able to just pull up on you
That's true.
in your private
That's
moments,
true.
in your high
That's
moments,
true.
and in your low moments?
Absolutely.
And consistently see the thing that I see
Absolutely.
in the public arena. So
critical.
that's the part where there's the gaps, and that's the part where I would advise people to have a level of caution. And it's not that you won't look at couples and look at people, and it's not that they're being disingenuous, because we just don't know. But you have to give that the grain of salt, or the filter that it needs to have, because you don't know people's private struggles. You don't know anything beyond this. The folks that are watching us now are watching us in a very curated format.
Yeah.
In an edited format. We have dressed up to come.
And that was a look at how Rufus and Jamila navigate relationships in the public eye and keep things real even when everyone's watching. It's a great reminder that a strong relationship can handle the spotlight with a little humor and a lot of heart. Now let's move on to episode 24, titled The Mamba Mentality in Marriage. In this powerful episode, Rufus and Jamila celebrated 24 years of marriage and shared how they've applied the legendary Mamba mentality, inspired by Kobe Bryant, to their relationship. They talked about perseverance, growth, and the different seasons of marriage, offering inspiration for couples at every stage. Let's jump in and hear their story.
I mean, it's been an amazing journey. I would say I feel like it has gone fast. To think 24 years ago, I still remember, the wedding rehearsal, the rehearsal dinner. I remember the wedding day. I remember the reception. I mean, those memories are forever etched, in my mind and my heart. And it just seems like it was yesterday. I remember going out on the reception on that balcony that was next to the room where we had, and, taking pictures with the photographer and taking pictures with certain family members and, people sharing reflections with us throughout the day and the evening. So it just seems like yesterday. So I'm amazed at how fast it has went. And, when I think about 24 years, I just think about the seasons, the seasons of our marriage. And those seasons have been different, you know what I mean, and changing. And I think about, all of the cities that we've lived in.
Oh my goodness.
And all of the things that were priorities in different seasons. There was a time when we were hustling and grinding and work, trying to build a career. And then, there was a season of, okay, you were pregnant. Then there was seasons of entrepreneurial endeavors and ministry and church, and then moving to Los Angeles. So I just think about all of these different seasons of marriage. And I feel like we've been able to endure those seasons because, there was a foundation that had been laid, had been built to help us sustain those seasons. But no, it's been an amazing, I mean, you are an amazing woman. You're an amazing wife. You're an amazing mother. And, I feel like I always knew you were an amazing woman, since when we started dating, right? This is like, man, this is a big personality, a larger than life person, but it's been a joy to watch you mature and blossom in different areas of your life along the way. You know what I mean? So I love you. I celebrate you. I honor you. I'll forever cherish you. So I couldn't think of a better person to be on this journey with.
Okay, now I'm all thunderstruck in my heart. I was like, this was not in the notes.
Yeah.
We've been married for 24 years, but we've been together 29 years.
Yeah.
And
Six.
so-
Yeah, that's
Yes,
29.
yeah, we've been together
1996.
since 1996. And so it's even amazing for me to say out loud that it's been almost 3 decades, certainly
Wow, that's crazy.
the majority of my natural life.
Yeah.
At this point, we are at the stage where we grew up together because there really wasn't much that happened in my life before.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it has been, when you talk about what has been a joy, it has been just amazing to me who I was able to become and who we were able to become because of us being together.
Yeah. Didn't see this.
And absolutely. And it's just, and you talk about this big, larger than life personality. And then when I describe your personality, you way laid back and, you know, unbothered by all of this stuff and just, you know, really, really the opposite of that. And that's what made us work in a lot of ways because we got to level each other out and bring out attributes in one another that we wouldn't have had independently. And just the level of growth, just where your strengths are analytically, logically. You're very sober and very calculated in a lot of ways. And I can allow my emotions to get all over the place and not allow me to be sober in my thinking and allow me to kind of make decisions, you know, not based on information that's, you know, important or as relevant. And you are able to kind of anchor that. I describe you as being really like a mooring or an anchor, you know, in my life. And I get to do all of these things and have all this personality, and that's great. But without an anchor or without a mooring, you just out there.
Yeah.
You're just out there. And so thank you for being that for me and for allowing the Chambers legacy to mean something, you know, different in the earth realm and in this season. And so not only for you to be Chambers by name, but to be a third-time namesake. And to carry a legacy of just your wonderful forefathers in an amazing way. And then for your leg of the race, for your generation, for you to advance it the way that you have, Dr. Chambers. It has just been, you know, amazing to see. And it's like we just getting started. Too.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I know.
Prayerfully, yeah, absolutely.
I know. It's like it's like 24 years who? Who said what? 24 years who? It's like it's literally just getting started. So that makes it exciting. That makes it, you know, something to look forward to. And you have given me an amazing life.
Hey.
You are giving me an amazing life. There's nothing that I look back for the good days and the bad days and say, I want to trade it up. What is it about the Mamba mentality just in general that you think is most applicable to marriage?
That's a good question. I feel like there's so much could be said. First thing that comes to mind is we saw Kobe Bryant from 2 POVs.
Sure.
We saw Kobe Bryant as the player in real time. So we saw how he played. We saw his confidence, sometimes what seemed to be overconfidence. We saw how he could be disrespectful to his teammates. And then secondly, the second POV we saw of him was after basketball, you know, really leaning into becoming a father and then really sharing his mentality with the world in different platforms. And I feel like that second POV is helping us have this conversation. And I think sometimes in marriage, when you're living it out in real time in front of people, you may not be able to articulate what you're doing. You know what I mean? Because it's like, I mean, we saw Kobe. I mean, this guy was, a lot of people would call him a straight a-hole all day long. You know, and he was so just brutally honest, but he had a destination.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And I think sometimes when a marriage is being formed and shaped and built, sometimes you don't have time to apologize along the way. You know what I'm saying? You're trying to get your marriage to a place of safety or to a place of stability, to a place of potential legacy. So, and then, you know, once you then you can start, hey, y'all, you know, blah, 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 blah. So that's something I think we can take from Kobe Bryant.
And that was how Rufus and Jamila brought the Mamba mentality into their marriage journey, showing us all how dedication and perseverance can strengthen a relationship over the years. It's a truly inspiring way to look at love and commitment. And now we come to our final highlight of the year with episode 30. We're unpacking the discussion surrounding Ayesha Curry's past podcast appearance and what it reveals about marriage, expectations, identity, and the tension between the life we imagined and the life we're living. Let's jump right into it.
In the news this week,
Yes.
clips going around the TikTok streets.
Yes.
With none other than Ayesha Curry.
Yes.
And her recent appearance on Call Her Daddy podcast.
Call Her Daddy.
Not him, her.
Okay, well, there we go.
And there has been just this discussion around comments that she has made
Yes.
in relation to her marriage, in relation to becoming a mother, the timing of which there's been just a ton of controversy around it because there appeared to be that discussion around her desire not to be married or not to have children, or the sequence or the timing of those things. And much of the conversation and much of the discussion had really sparked from that posture of, girl, you married to Steph Curry. And so with being married to someone that is of stature, that's a professional athlete, that's a celebrity, that's a person of note, sometimes that posture of complaining, Jada Pinkett Smith comes to mind as well, that posture of being vocal about things that cause discomfort within the marriage, or that conversation around being vocal around things that might not be popular, tends to spark this kind of conversation. So as we get into it today, just what was your initial reaction or initial, smiling at me like that, initial reaction?
Well, you know, I have to have, my sensor and filter is being activated so I don't say anything unbecoming of myself or my family in this moment. So that's what that's
With your wife and your two daughters. Being sensitive.
Yeah, so my filter was getting started. You know.
But initial reaction.
Well, and just a little more context.
Yes.
Because, you know, people are writing articles and
Sure.
the bloggers are blogging, the vloggers are vlogging about it. Some of the folks brought up a previous podcast episode that she was on, I believe actually with Jada Pinkett Smith, and she was sharing how, you know, her husband obviously gets a lot of attention from the opposite sex. And she was saying how she doesn't necessarily get that attention. And it sounded like in that conversation that she was desiring that attention, you know. So some people are trying to connect that conversation with this conversation. Yes. And then, you know, of course, her having that conversation on the Red Table Talk with Jada Pinkett Smith and some of the statements she has made about Will Smith and their marriage. And, you know, we remember Jada Pinkett Smith saying that she did not desire to be married and that her mother really tried to encourage her to get married and kind of get her over the hump.
Yes.
You know, it's so, you know, so there's a lot there. And my first reaction was disappointment. for a couple of reasons. Because when I see the Curry family, I see a beautiful family. I see a obviously highly successful husband, who has built an amazing career, an amazing platform, who appears to love his wife and love his children.
Mhm.
And, Steph Curry has also been vocal about his faith, being a follower of Christ. And, we used to live in the Bay Area and we would hear about,
Yes.
him giving back to the community. So when I'm listening to her, I'm thinking about that image of this family.
Yeah.
So my first reaction was like, wow, I wonder how her husband is responding and then her children, because if mommy's on a platform or a podcast saying she didn't want children, how does that make the kids feel? And then how do you explain that to your children? You know what I mean? So that was my first reaction.
She said, I came to California to pursue a career in acting. And shortly after my arrival, I got into this relationship that has now spawned this marriage and this very public thing. And I was 22 years old when I got married. And shortly afterwards, I became pregnant within the marriage and just immediately became a wife and mother. And here I am, 22, 23, 24, like really, really young. And so oftentimes, and that's what it felt like more in the conversation, that she was playing out this
in front of a camera.
And so you're processing it
in real time.
And it's a real emotion and it's a real thing. And these are real questions. But there's the nuance to it, right? Because your life didn't turn out all that bad. And the reason we're listening to you is because of the life you said you didn't want. And that's the tension. And I think that's what people feel. And so she was playing out in real time that I had some very specific things that I wanted to do with my life. I had a very specific plan, and there was an intersection. And there was a change. And there was something that happened differently that I didn't expect, didn't anticipate. And even you and I have a daughter that is soon to be 21. Even in processing in your 19, 20, 21-year-old mind what it means to be married, you think about it differently at 22 when it happens than the years later that have passed, realizing I didn't get that time to really, really understand what I was saying yes to. Really, really understand the totality of that. And I don't think anybody knows, right? Nobody knows whether you get married at 22, 32, 42, or 52. Nobody knows, what it's like to be married. You can't describe it to anybody. No one knows what it's like to be a parent until you become a parent. I don't care how much you study. One of those things. This is one of those times where learning is experiential. Like there is no manual that anyone can give you to navigate through it. So I got the impression that she was processing in real time that life that she set out to lead versus the life that she has.
For one, of course, it's cool. You go on a podcast, you share your heart, you're processing in real time.
Yes.
And again, sometimes the grass looks greener.
Sure.
The grass looks greener. You have these kids, you have this husband that has a big personality, that has a big career, that's like a global superstar. And, it's probably easy for her to say, I've sacrificed my life for this man and my children. And that's perfectly fine. Part of marriage is sacrifice.
Yes.
Because the truth of the matter, he can say his level of sacrifice hasn't been just for himself, but it's been for his family,
Sure.
his legacy, his familiar name. His dad was an NBA
Absolutely.
player, so he's running with the baton and all of this. So, it's okay to process and share that. And back to your question about, we kind of deal with that, or, people may look at us and say, wow, that's it. And then I mean, no, I don't. Just to keep it a buck, I don't look at single men and say, man, I want that
right.
life. You know what I'm saying? To be honest, single men that I'm in relationship with and that I mentor, I'm like, brother, I feel for you. You know, I feel for you because of the terrain that you're navigating in 2025 is very challenging.
Yes.
And that brings us to the end of our year-end recap. We hope you've enjoyed revisiting these special moments from With Love, The Chambers. It's been such an incredible journey, and we're so grateful for each and every listener. So if you enjoyed this recap, please like, share, and comment about your favorite episode. We'd love to hear from you. We'll see you next time on With Love, The Chambers. This episode of With Love, The Chambers was brought to you by the Vision Engineering Collective, where purpose meets strategy and vision comes to life. If you've been enjoying the stories, the laughs, and those deep life lessons, we invite you to support the show and help us keep the love flowing. Head over to www.coff.ee/withlovethechambers. Think of it like buying us a cup of coffee or two. As always, thank you for hanging with us. We'll see you next time. With Love, The Chambers.
That's a wrap for today's episode of With Love, The Chambers.
We hope you laughed, learned, and felt encouraged along the way.
If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share with someone who needs a little love and wisdom today.
You can also connect with us online on all social media platforms at Rufus Chambers Online and at Jamila Chambers. We'd love to hear from you.
Until next time,
keep living, keep laughing, and keep learning with Love, The Chambers.